Hello and welcome to Not Without My Sister. We're back, together again. The sisters, Beatrice has returned, although apparently she needn't have bothered. Beatrice, how do you feel about the reception that Brandon got for his guest spot?
Delighted. I'm like so delighted that he was so well received and that I'm so easily replaceable. Absolutely over the moon. On a more serious note, however, it did make me think as I shuddered with dread today, realised, oh my God, it's already it's Sunday at 5 p.m. and I've got to do this stupid podcast. I was like, you know what, maybe Brandon can do it from now on. Good luck to him. Good luck to both of you. And I can just relax. Have a nice glass of wine. I don't think our
marriage would last long through that. Did you listen to the episode?
I didn't. What if he is brilliant?
Oh my God! Can't believe you didn't even listen to it.
I will. I was literally. It's the weekend. I only noticed it was up yesterday.
There have been a few technical difficulties because we switched hosts a couple of weeks ago. So there are a few people who didn't get the last two episodes until, if they were listening on Apple Podcasts, they would have got them a bit late. So I'm very sorry about that. But that is a good time to remind you that if you sign up to our Patreon, you get an extra episode each and every week. Each and every Friday, you get a bonus episode on Patreon. It's patreon.com/notwithoutmysister. And you help keep the lights on in the Not Without My Sister studio, which is now beautifully lit.
Yeah, I look absolutely glorious. Did you think he was good? Like, was he any good for an amateur? Was he good?
I mean, Beatrice, he's so American. He was as confident. Before we started, I was like, do you mind doing this? Are you a bit nervous? Just try to relax and be... I needn't have bothered saying anything. He was like sat down like he was born to sit in front of a microphone. Delighted with himself.
American and male. I suppose it's a double whammy.
Yeah, and at one point I kind of corrected him where I was like, oh no, don't say that in the podcast. And he just argued with me. He didn't go like, oh, you're the expert. You know what I mean? Oh, okay, it's your podcast. He was like, don't be ridiculous.
I mean,
I am the expert.
Have you met this husband of yours? I think he is the expert on everything. Regardless of, he is what mansplaining was invented for. Didn't the story go that she was at a party and she met some guy who proceeded to tell her like about a book that he had read, and she said, actually, I wrote that book. And he then went to tell her like the contents of the book and what she meant by everything that she said. And I'm like, I feel like that's Brandon. Yeah. You could say, oh, Brandon, I wrote this in my book. And he's like, did you? Let me check Google.
He would actually. He'd be like, I'm sure you wrote something different. But knowing my memory, he'd be right.
He does love an old Google check.
He does. Ah, God bless him. No, but he was great. And we're very grateful to him for stepping in. It'll be Don's turn next.
Yeah, Don's dying to correct every false memory of his.
Well, you know what? A couple of months ago, Brandon said that he was dying to correct every false narrative that he had been, embroiled in on the podcast. But he just totally forgot about them. So I can only hope that happens to Don as well.
They obviously weren't a big deal.
Today I thought we'd have a little chat. We could talk about a few of the things that we've been consuming lately in terms of culture, Beatrice. I mean, I've been consuming some delicious sugared cashews.
I've been consuming nothing. I joined Weight Watchers and I'm tired. 10 days later, I opened the press today and I was like, oh, I can't even have those 2 cashews that are staring at me. I mean, I can. I know anybody in Weight Watchers would be like, you can't. That's the whole point. You can have whatever you like, but you can't, right? You literally can't. I ate my 17 points. I'm tracking. So this is the bit that'll make you laugh. I didn't trust Weight Watchers the first time I did it as much because it was like you could have so many ridiculous things up to like 26 points or whatever it was. And now they've drastically reduced the points, but you get extra points if you eat like healthy stuff, right? So you can... Yeah. If I were to munch my way through a sack of lettuce, I'd have an extra 20 points. And I decided it must be that they kind of think that a point is going to be on average X number of calories. And therefore, but that if you use your points with, lettuce and stuff, they realize that's 20 calories. So at the end of it, so I used all 17 of my calories anyway. And 17 of my, that's what it feels like, 17 of my points. And then on the other side, I'm tracking on the new map because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't like going over my calories, right? So 17.
Are you still paying for Noom?
Oh, I cancelled it, but like I have it for the rest of the year, the kind of thing. So I was like, might as well use this. So 17 points, had eaten all of them, went on to Noom, had eaten 235 calories, right? But obviously what they're trying to say is you can eat, because there's so many things that you can eat ad infinitum, you know? So they're obviously like, why'd you sit down now? It's really like, Mom, why'd you sit down now and have a banana? Why don't you cook yourself a delicious bowl of Brussels sprouts? I was like, oh, I'm so bored with all the food prep. And I know this is normal living, but like, it's not normal living for me. I'm usually like, what's the easiest, fastest, most delicious thing in the freezer that I'm just going to cook and put some cheese on? That's usually my modus operandi.
And like the whole idea as well that like you can eat as many vegetables as you want, and you actually get, because you don't overeat vegetables. You don't sit in front of the TV and eat like pint after pint of vegetables.
No, and as well, like I was also thinking that just now when I had my dinner, I had a delicious Italian sausage. It was actually delicious. Like my mouth was watering. And I also was wondering if I plan to have two of the, like normally I would only eat one. I'd be like, well, that's one sausage, that's perfect. But today, because I'm absolutely thinking about food nonstop, I was like, I wonder if I could have two of those. Well, no, I couldn't. My points wouldn't let me. So I had a massive salad to go with it. And then halfway through the salad, I was like, this is actually really tasty, but I'm so bored chewing it. So I left half it. Like, how often would I be leaving my dinner behind? But I'm so satiated, so happy with my delicious dinner. And I've lost 1 pound in the 10 days. So I'm not delighted with myself.
Well, it's a good thing then that I didn't want to talk about the food you consumed, but instead wanted to talk about the books and films and TV that you'd consumed since the last time we talked about this, which actually was ages ago. And you're not allowed to talk about Margaret Heffernan.
Oh.
And you're also not allowed to talk about that one who went into the jungle and did
Audrey Shulman.
No. Theory
well,
of Bastards.
I am reading. I'm not reading Theory of Bastards. I'm reading Audrey Shulman's second book now, another book by her.
Really?
Yes, which is entirely different. I can't remember the name of it. It's on a split timeline between an American explorer who goes to Africa to build trains to lay the railroad, and then an American researcher in modern times who goes over to study animals. I haven't gotten that far yet, but it's very interesting.
That does sound interesting.
Yeah, and it's of course very well written. And the modern day American researcher is, I believe, autistic. She's on the spectrum somehow. So like it's interesting, her encounters, how she deals with things. It's very. I mean, I think your one's must be a great researcher because they're very detailed and even the historical aspect of the guy who's come over from the States to lay the railroad is, so like talking about the costumes, talking about the interactions of like the, historical things and talking about his background and how he grew up, what his perception is of, the African people that he meets, etc. Like she's a brilliant writer. I don't know why she's not more famous.
That kind of stuff makes me, I mean, as somebody who is a writer and has, dreams of having many novels published, but I just don't want to do any work like that work. You know what I mean? So I don't want to do all this research.
Margaret Atwood is the other one who I'm always shocked when I read her books. And then at the end she goes, thank you so much to my research team, my team of like 5 people who've researched everything. Thanks for going into the archives at the local...
But that's actually comforting. I'd like to have a research team. I just don't want to do it myself.
Yeah, you're right. There you go.
That's absolutely fine.
There's the answer.
I'm currently reading The Snag List by my friend Sophie White, author Sophie White. I actually had totally forgotten that I had it because I got sent it in the post. I think it only came out about 2-3 weeks ago. And I got sent it in the post and put it, I think, on the coffee table. And then Jennifer, my cleaner, moved it, which is, if she has to move things. But then also I frequently forget that things exist when she's moved them to places that I can't see them. And then yesterday I suddenly remembered, went hunting for it around the house. And I'm now halfway through and really enjoying it. It's about 3 women who move with their partners to this place called Monterey, which is basically like some kind of weird Stepford, not quite a commune, but a compound outside of Dublin where like all of their needs are catered for and they have staff and they have this and they have that. And it's kind of creepy, but it's also, I don't actually know what it's about really. It's about some kind of scandal that comes out. Oh, and one of the women is a like YouTube mom, like a Ryan's World's mom.
Oh.
And I'm really enjoying it. And I finally finished, well, this is because I'm actually on a bit of a reading spree for me. Because last year I think I read about 2 books. This year I got really caught in Maeve Binchy's Light a Penny Candle, which I mentioned on the podcast a couple of times that I was just still reading. Took me ages.
Oh.
But then in the last few days or in the last kind of week or so, I've read a book called The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, which, as you can imagine, is a bit raunchy. The Love
really?
Hypothesis. Yeah.
Oh,
and it's about... It's set in this college about this PhD researcher who basically lies to her friend and tells her she's going on a date, and then the friend spots her, so she just snogs the like nearest man she sees, and then they start pretending to be dating so that her friend will think that he's the guy she was on the date with. It's stupid. But it's very entertaining.
Well, I'm also reading, you'll be happy to hear, here's a workbook that I'm reading, which is very interesting. It's called Impact Leaders by Liz Wiseman. And I recently did a workshop in work with a group of colleagues called Multipliers. And it's about how can you as a leader multiply the inherent genius of those, tap into and multiply the genius of those around you. Like how can you really bring out people's full potential? How can you challenge them? How can you make them want to bring their full selves to work? Because basically the research says, that people are much, much happier if they can be their best selves at work, even if it's more exhausting and more work for them. It is nonetheless much more exhilarating than only bringing half of your inherent abilities to your job. Yeah. And so if you're that kind of a leader, it's called multiplier. And it's not to say that like that everybody has multiplying tendencies, and it's the opposite of being a multiplier is a diminisher. So like, if you think about bad bosses that you've had in the past, why did they not make you want to be your best self? And like, sometimes it isn't even, sometimes it's not even conscious. It's more that they're maybe micromanaging you or maybe they're just not explaining things well to you. So, and there's just like a lack of communication or whatever. Like there could be a lot of different reasons, and that's called being a diminisher. And the whole hypothesis is that like as an individual, there's no such thing as like I would never just be I'm a multiplier. I'm multiplying everybody I meet, but it's like you have multiplying moments and multiplying tendencies, and how do you lean into them and then really make sure that you're very consciously trying to exhibit those behaviors more than you're trying to exhibit your diminishing behaviors.
And how do you lean into those behaviors?
Well, some of it is like there were I think 9 different types of personalities that were identified as being very, multiplier behaviors, but also diminishing. It's like that saying, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness at the same time. Like you could be a really empathic person, but then, on the flip side of that, like you're so empathic that it takes up all your time and you don't get any work done. You just can't, or you're so empathic that you spend all your time indulging people's, emotions, and they don't get any work done because they're now exhausted and drained and crying at work all day long because you're, tapping into that. Yeah, so this talks about it. It more identifies like, are you a rescuer? You're somebody who really wants your team to be protected. But the flip side of that is then they don't deal with their issues themselves and they look to you for guidance. Or one of mine was I'm an idea fountain, right? So I have tons of ideas. But then the other side of that is that it's like drinking out of a fire hose for people. They don't know which one is an idea, which one is a plan, which one is to act on, what's a suggestion, and it can be very kind of chaotic and feel like very chaotic for people who want to understand like what's the plan, where are we going, where I'm going, well, we could be going here, and they're like, are we? I thought we were going over here.
And they want a directive.
Yeah. And it's not to say that like you shouldn't be, but it's like, how do you harness it? So I mean, some of it is as simple as saying, hey, this is a brainstorm, and the purpose of this is for us all to throw out ideas, and we're not going to act on these unless afterwards we all align together as a team to act on 1 or 2 of them, and then we'll make a plan and we'll regroup and we'll define that. But the purpose of this meeting is to brainstorm and have ideas. So like it's really more about clarifying your intention in that instance, right? Could be one of the ways that you lean into your multiplying behavior. Like if this is a skill you have, how do you make it benefit everybody instead of just like fun for you, and a nightmare for everybody else? But anyway,
and what's that book called again?
Well, that book is called Multipliers, but the book that I'm reading now is called Impact Leaders, right? Because I left the workshop and I was like, God, that was very inspirational. And, and it's so, I mean, it is inspiring to think like, how can you bring out the best in people, and how can you partner with people? And like, you want people to also enjoy and feel like they are, getting something out of their jobs as well. But then the other side of it, I was thinking, and somebody said, and I was thinking this, well, like, how do you multiply somebody who doesn't want to be multiplied? Like, how do you, if you're not going to actively be saying to people, hey, this is what we're doing, this is the purpose of this, like how, there's an onus, it's a two-way street. You could be like desperately multiplying people all day long, but unless they're engaged with you and doing their part too. So I was like, oh, she should have written a book about that. And lo and behold, she did. And that was called Impact Leaders. And that was where she was talking about, oh my God, there's a raccoon up in the tree eating all the birdseed.
Again?
Yeah. Cunning. The 2 little hands He's having a great little meal out there. Anyway.
Oh, I'd say he's having the best time.
Yeah, at the very beginning, she says, she goes, I spoke to, a leader of an organization who said, well, Liz, you can't multiply 0. She goes, which is what gave me the idea for this book. Not to say that a person would be a 0, but like if somebody's trying, bringing nothing to work, how do you multiply that? How do you engage them? How do you help them understand that it's a partnership? It's not just, hey, I'm your manager, I'm here to solve all your problems. No, like I'm your manager and I'm here to be a good manager and do these things, but like you have to be a good partner and do these things in return. And therefore that's what makes. So like, how do you become the best employee? And then your manager can be busy all day multiplying you. I loved it.
And are you finished Impact Leaders?
Of course I'm not. I'm on about chapter 5.
Oh.
But I did do the multiplier course 3 times with 3 different groups of people. So I am an expert at it now. I'm not an expert, but like I've got the theory down.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you sound like an expert. I have a book here called, well, no, I've actually moved it to my bookshelf. I had it on my to-read pile, and then I was like, I'm never going to get around to that, called You Are What You Click, which feels like the closest thing to, like, a workbook for me, if you know what I mean. Be bad news if I actually am what I click, because there's a lot of crap. The number one, like, when I open a new window, the number one is Tattle, that terrible blogger gossip website. Oh my God, did I ever tell you when I left Stellar magazine, Jean Sutton, a friend of mine, she took over as deputy editor after me, and she texted me the day after she started and was like, oh my God, I just opened your browser and the number one page is like this blogger's Instagram page who I'm obsessed with. Clearly very busy at work.
Very busy at work. Well, I did discover, I'm watching Elementary, right, which...
What's that?
It's grand. Like, it's that old thing about Sherlock Holmes in New York,
Oh, no.
With Lucy Liu.
Right, it's grand. I was thinking of something completely different.
I ran out of all other cop shows, so I'm watching this. It's grand. It's kind of charming little dynamic. Anyway, she said patronisingly. Anyway, The Flight Attendant on HBO with Kaylee Cuoco. Amazing. I told you to watch this. Have you watched any of it?
No, you did tell me, but you didn't tell me it was Kaylee Cuoco. You just said you should watch The Flight Attendant, and I think I was like in one ear out the other.
It is excellent. I'm on season 2 of it now. It is excellent. It's about, you'll be surprised here, a flight attendant.
But is it a comedy or is it a drama?
It's a dramedy. Right. It's and also an intrigue, espionage. It's very right good.
Right up your street.
Yeah, it's very good. But she's a massive alcoholic in the first one, and it's like it's handled with humor, but also like looks just desperate. Like on the one hand, I'm going, God, her life looks great. On the other hand, I'm going, oh my God, this is just awful. But it's really brilliant. Her clothes are great in it. Really lots and really nice sweeping coats that I started Googling afterwards. Like, where am I going to get these coats? None the wiser. Really nice jeans, trousers, a very fancy very low cut gold dress that I was like, wish I could look that good in that. Also, if I was a massive alcoholic, I don't think I would look so amazing, but she does look great. She's a good actress. I've never watched The Big Bang Theory, but she's very entertaining.
Neither have I. And anytime I flicked onto it, I've been instantly annoyed. Don't know why.
Yeah.
I've taken against it in a major way. I should watch that because I've been watching The Girl from Plainville, which is very good, very well acted. It's the one starring Elle Fanning and Chloe Sevigny. But it's just so depressing.
But it's also so soon. Like, how would I feel? How would you feel if that was your son's story? Like, this only happened a couple of years ago. I feel like, to me, it feels tasteless to be doing this. It's like those ripped from the headlines Law and Order ones that I go, really? Like, I literally have zero imagination for a story here, lads. I understand this one is an actual representation of that case, but isn't it a bit soon?
Well, I'm just looking up because as you said that, I was like, I thought it was like 15 years ago, which doesn't feel like that soon. No, 2014 is only 8 years ago. So yeah,
it was not 15 years ago.
No.
It was like 8 years ago, and then the court case was only about 5 years ago.
Oh, you're right, and she's out of prison already.
I mean, can you imagine? Like, I don't know how it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of these right now, and Renee Zellweger just did one as well called Pam. I think
Pam. There's something about Pam. Is that what it's called?
I think it's just called Pam. And
it's not. Go on. It's definitely not just called Pam. I don't
really, think. Brandon, when did you first notice this? That's right. Anyway, and she was talking about.
Oh my God! It is called Pam.
I know, Rosemary.
I'm so sorry.
I know. I didn't want to rub it in, but like I knew that. You're welcome.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're not sorry at all. You're just embarrassed because you were caught on a recording being so
I'm
obnoxious.
Genuinely sorry.
Unbelievable.
Liam, take that all out.
But like I was reading her interview in Vogue or something, I don't know, bizarre. And she was like, oh, when I read this story in the news, I just had to buy the rights. I was like, how do you buy the rights to my tragedy? I don't know, this is a bit odd, like.
That is.
I mean, maybe I sell the right. Maybe I'm like selling the rights to my tragedy. I mean, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how it works. I'm not an entertainment lawyer.
I mean, I don't think you really own your own story per se in that sense. If it's newsworthy, I think anybody can make a story out of it. Maybe you just kind of like a trademark or something. That I don't know.
You probably commission somebody to write it.
Somebody who works in film or TV. Let us know how this works.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm starting to dangerously hypothesize here.
Yeah, Brandon, you don't know everything.
Poor Brandon. He'll be like, I'm never doing that again.
But listen, speaking of high quality drama, I've started watching, for the first time in my life, The Kardashians. The new series on Hulu. Yeah, I never watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians before. I mean, I'd seen the odd episode, you know, either because it was on TV or because I was in someone's house or whatever, and I'd kind of gone, oh, that seems like nothing ever happens in the episodes on Keeping Up with the Kardashians as far as I can tell. But I started watching The Kardashians, I think because I saw it so, like, it was drummed into me.
Don't even bother making excuses. You started watching it.
I started watching it, and I mean, I don't really know. It's kind of done more now in the Hill style. So like every episode has kind of a through arc. So one episode is kind of about Kourtney getting engaged with Travis Barker, who, by the way, seems like the biggest sap.
Does he?
Oh my God. Kris Jenner bought a new house. That was the theme of the last episode. Kris Jenner buys a new house and Scott Disick is having a meltdown. But she bought a new house and they all came over to have a look at it. And Travis Barker walked around the house the entire time with this like blue leather jacket tossed over his shoulder and held on by his finger like a fashion blogger at Paris Fashion Week trying to get papped outside the shows. It was the most embarrassing. He walked around the whole house like that. Like, put your coat down. Well, you're staying for dinner.
What? Maybe he's not. He looks very skinny. He's probably not eating a lot of dinner. I mean, potentially he could eat a lot of food. Just be very healthy. Anyway, what about the one I saw a clip of one where poor what's her face, Kourtney, found out that Tristan had fathered another child. Oh yeah, Chloe.
That hasn't happened yet in the show. I think that might be the next episode or the episode after. Yeah, horrific. Because so far Chloe's basically saying, yeah, Tristan and I are back together. We've kind of been keeping it on the down low. Our relationship is going really well. He's in therapy. We're in therapy. He's really trying.
Oh.
You know, like he's my best friend. We get on so well. And I know this tragedy is coming. Poor Chloe is right.
I mean, is it a tragedy? She'll look back in the future and be like, well shot at that loser.
And you know what's actually the weirdest thing is that, so on Hulu now, when you're finished The Kardashians, you know it automatically goes on to this, like your suggested next show. And my suggested next show after The Kardashians is Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So yesterday I finished watching The Kardashians. I didn't have the remote. I was too lazy to get it.
Rosemary, the amount of excuse making you were doing around watching The Kardashians.
It suddenly started playing season 1, episode 1 of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
I can imagine you.
And Beatrice.
This thing.
Listen.
Oh, good. I'll close my eyes. Oh, I've been closing my eyes for 30 minutes. Oh, it's still on. Oh.
And basically, if somebody said to me, this, like, Keeping Up with the Kardashians is a comedy sketch show where comedians take off the cast of the Kardashians because they all look so different, they act so different, it's shot so like amateurishly. It's like it's like an early like MTV reality show. It's so weird to watch.
This was season 1?
This was, so like after I'd watched the Kardashians, it then flicked back to season 1, episode 1 of the very, very first one where they're like...
What do you mean they look different?
They're a lot younger, Beatrice. It's almost 20 years ago.
Is it? Do they actually look different? I mean, given that though, do they actually look any older?
No, they don't look older. They look like...
Jesus, I need to get on my rowing machine.
Their own waxworks.
Oh God, I need a waxwork.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd love to have a waxwork that I could just like pop around the place. I could just carry around if I didn't want to go to anything. I'd just have to make sure. I'd be like, here I am.
Leave that. I'd be like, the waxwork would have melted.
I was about to say, I'd be like, here I am. Put me in the shade.
So season 1 of the Kardashians was 2007. So 15 years ago.
You're not very good with your dates today.
No, I'm terrible with my dates, but they're 15 years ago. Yeah, and they all look... And poor Chloe. And just like... I just feel so bad for poor Chloe, who was always basically got like a really bad rap for being the bigger of the three sisters and like got called the ugly one in the media.
Well, who's had the last laugh now? Now she looks...
But like, she was gorgeous.
But look at her now. She's removed 82 ribs and she has a waist the size of... Look at my two fingers together. Bigger than her waist.
I know, but it's just she didn't need to. She was gorgeous. We're all gorgeous as we are. We don't need to turn into our own waxworks. Yes, Beatrice, she was. Beatrice literally making a face like, but was she? She was. I'll send you a picture from season 1, episode 1. She was so cute.
You are such a telltale. Do you know that?
Yes. Okay, so if you had one recommendation of something that you've read or seen the last while, what would it be?
Oh, definitely The Flight Attendant. It's great. And that Audrey Shulman book that I'm not allowed to mention.
I would recommend The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Really enjoyed it. And also The Snag List by Sophie White, but I'm not quite finished that, so I can't really tell if the ending is going to be satisfying. I'm sure it is. Thank you all so much for listening. What?
Oh, it's fine. I'm sure I had some other things to recommend, but that's fine. We'll save it for the next time.
Thank you all so much for listening to Not Without My Sister. You can get us on Instagram at Not Without My Sister individually under our names with A's in our Macs. Our website is notwithoutmysis.com, and please email us notwithoutmysis@gmail.com with all of your thoughts. We want to hear them.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye. Not Without My Sister is produced by Liam Garrity, sound and original music by Don Kirkland, and our original illustration is by Lindsay Nielsen.
Petrified, the horror fiction anthology podcast from a darker Ireland, is back.
Who's there?
Petrified tells the chilling tales of ordinary people encountering the supernatural and their terrifying fates.
Oh, dear God! Reverend Mother!
CrimeReads.com said Petrified is extremely well written, expertly produced and brilliantly acted.
Don't leave me here!
Petrified, Series 2 out now.